So, I wasn't expecting to be doing an update quite so quickly on Phoebe's case, but here we are. So, for those of you who are not familiar with this case, Phoebe Bishop went missing on the 15th of May, supposedly dropped off about a kilometre from the airport at Bundaberg, where she was meant to be catching a flight to Brisbane and then on to Western Australia to see her boyfriend. This is according to her flatmates, who claim to have dropped her off along the road. There's no CCTV footage to confirm this. There is CCTV footage of their vehicle in another location in Bundaberg with Phoebe in the vehicle. Phoebe hasn't been seen since May 15. She never made her flight, and it seems that at this point in time the police investigation possibly isn't making as much progress as we would like. Although that said, who knows what's going on behind the scenes. If you aren't familiar with this case, I do have a full playlist now on Phoebe's case if you wanted to backtrack and have a look at the other videos that I've done. So, as you can see from the title, Wood has been released without charges at this point in time, and I'll come back to that later in this video. He's also spoken to Daily Mail and told them his version of the story of Phoebe's disappearance, which I will also go through in this video. I'm also going to discuss some observations with regards to Tanika Bromley's car, given that thanks to the media we now have a few images of that car available since the time that Phoebe went missing. First of all though, I'm going to start with the latest post from Phoebe's mother. So at the time of making this video there wasn't a post up from today, but this is her post from yesterday, which shows us that we are now 3 weeks in from when Phoebe went missing, which for her mum must feel like an absolute eternity. So this is her post from yesterday. Starting day 20 with you, still missing Phoebe. I don't know if life will ever be the same again. I don't know if I will ever look at the world the same way I did before May 15th. What I do know is that people have information on where you are, Fee, and we need that reported to police. Now, given the size of the community of Gin Gin, I would imagine that Kylie knows this for certain, that there are people that have information on where Phoebe is. I suspect there's possibly one person in particular that she's aiming this at, that of course being Tanika Bromley. But, you know, let's be real about this too, and I suspect that there are definitely other people in the community who have knowledge, because I can't see Wood or Bromley being the kind of people who are going to stay quiet about this. Now, as sickening as this guy is, let's talk about the latest on Wood. So in yesterday's video I said that he had been taken into custody, and police were saying that they were getting him to help them with their investigation. I had hoped this morning that I would get online and see that charges had been laid, but instead there was the disappointing news that he had been released and there were no charges laid against him. But, you know, let's look at this in terms of how investigations run. Now, obviously, when it comes to any kind of criminal case, you have the double jeopardy rule, meaning that if he is arrested and charged and this goes to court and they don't have sufficient evidence, then if he gets off, they can't build a case against him again, and have him charged again. Given that this looks like it's going to end badly, obviously Queensland Police are not going to risk him getting off if he is the person responsible for whatever happened to Phoebe. So it seems that at this point in time, they may not have enough evidence against him to press charges. This doesn't mean that they can't come back and haul him back in again for more questions. This doesn't mean that they can't charge him down the track. This means that at this point in time, the guy is still a free man. Personally, I think he should enjoy his freedom for now, because honestly, to me, everything screams that this guy is the person responsible for Phoebe's disappearance. That, of course, is simply me expressing an opinion. I don't know this, but there's certainly a lot of things that point in his direction. Now, before he was arrested yesterday, he spoke to the Daily Mail and gave them his version of events in terms of Phoebe going missing. So I'm going to read through that for you, and I have a few comments to share along the way. So this is from a Daily Mail article, and this is supposedly what occurred. So Wood claimed that at their home in Gin Gin that morning, Phoebe was stressing about what to pack, what to wear, and making the flight on time. She wanted to get up at 5 a.m, but I said I wasn't waking up that early, it's not that far. Well, I don't think she was asking you to get up at 5 a.m. Maybe she wanted to get up at 5 a.m. Then she slept through her alarm. When she got up, she was furious. Okay. She's about to fly across the country to see her boyfriend, who she hasn't seen in who knows how long. She's no doubt excited about the flight, and you're telling me that she slept through her alarm? I find that hard to believe. I would imagine she would have been, I mean, I don't know this girl, but, given what she was about to do, heading to flying across the country, I would imagine that she would have woken up the moment her alarm went off, would have leapt out of bed and would have been keen to go. Now let's keep going. So she slept through her alarm, she got up, she was furious. She gets like that sometimes, and usually we can calm her down. But she was escalating, and then she smashed the TV, Wood claimed. Right, so she's so distressed about sleeping in that instead of just hitting the deck, basically getting dressed really quickly, getting ready, getting organised to get out the door, she had a temper tantrum and smashed the TV. This is a 17-year-old girl who is extremely slight. I'm just wondering why he would even claim that she smashed the TV. To me, reading between the lines, that says that something occurred at the house even before they left. And I'm guessing it wasn't Phoebe who smashed the TV. Let's keep going. After she started shouting about not having anything to wear, and she was so worked up about seeing her boyfriend for the first time, and she wanted to look good. This sounds like pure fiction to me. I would imagine that if she was so excited about seeing her boyfriend, so eager to be on the go first thing in the morning. Wouldn't she have chosen her clothes beforehand? Wouldn't she have her clothes out ready to wear? And let's be real, if it's true that the last thing she was wearing was trackies and a tank top, well, that's hardly worrying about looking great for her boyfriend. It sounds more like she was dressed to be comfortable on her flight. And when you consider all the photos that have been shared by Kylie's mother, it seems that she is just as comfortable in casual clothes as she is in fancy clothes. And, let's be real, this is not someone that she's met online and never seen before. This is a boyfriend who clearly she was connected with long enough before he moved interstate to feel comfortable enough to fly across the country to see him. It's not a new relationship. She's not going to be, in my opinion, stressing out about looking utterly perfect. And honestly, I'd love to hear a response from Kylie's mother or one of her siblings or even her boyfriend with regards to these claims. Here's where the story gets even more weird and ridiculous. So he's like, I get it, she's a teenager, she thinks he may be the love of her life, so I understand. Given the stories that are coming out about this guy, I actually suspect that he understands very little about women. Very little about teenage girls. But anyway, this is where it gets interesting. I grabbed some grey brand new trackies I had and threw them to her and said, wear these. And first she said she didn't want to take them as they were mine, but she said okay and put them on. So he just happened to have a pair of brand new trackies just sitting there, and he was so generous that he threw them to her and said, wear these. This guy looks like his trackies could fit 2 Phoebes inside them. Now I know trackies have elastic waistbands, but I just find it a little bit hard to believe that she would put on a pair of grey trackies that, given the size difference, would probably look like a pair of elephant trunks. So I am going to point out at this point in time that this story sounds not just like it is complete utter fiction, but it sounds like it is out of the mind of some kind of crazy narcissist who is gaslighting and also trying to blame the victim. This whole thing that we're reading here is making it sound like, oh, it's all about Phoebe. Phoebe was just out of her mind and we had nothing to do with it. We couldn't even control her. Taking advantage of basically the fact that she has had issues at home and has moved out of home, and he's basically jumping on that and turning that into his own story. So, let's go on with this. Wood claimed emotional outbursts were not unusual for the 17-year-old, but they had become more frequent in the weeks leading up to her trip. She does have a temper, but she's not a bad kid. She's actually a great kid. She's kind and smart and has good manners. But she was living with us because she couldn't live at home anymore. And here he's essentially, on one hand, he's saying that she has all these emotional outbursts. And then he's saying, oh, she's got a temper, but she's a good kid. And she's living with us because she couldn't live at home anymore. There were too many fights, too much had gone on, and she's just a kid. Well, can we read between the lines there? And I think I've said this before. 17-year-olds go through a phase where they are testing out their autonomy. They don't want to be told by their parents what they can do. They want to be able to make their own decisions, do their own things, have their own friends. So yes, it is quite likely that there were fights at home between her and her mother. Moving on. If I had a little sister and all she had was her car to live in, then I would want someone to help her. So he's alleging here that Phoebe had been living in a car because she couldn't live at home. I had known her for almost a year when she moved in with us 4 months ago, and Tanika worked with her as a carer, so they knew each other well. So that explains one of the rumours in terms of, we know that Tanika worked for Phoebe's mum. We didn't know what sort of role Tanika did. It seems like her role was a carer role. He's not saying she was a carer for Phoebe, but I'm guessing that's what he's trying to imply. Okay, here's where we get Wood's explanation of the ride to the airport. So he claims that despite the tardy start to the morning, there was still plenty of time to make her flight from Bundaberg, which was around 10 a.m. Now, what's interesting is that we were told that she was due to check in at 8:30. This is what the information that came out from law enforcement, I believe. So, as far as I know, you don't need to check in an hour and a half before your flight, especially not in a small regional airport where it's not like it's a huge plane. It's not like there's going to be a lot of passengers. And here's where we get odd details added. After loading a large duffel bag almost the size of her into the car alongside his dog, they set off for the airport with Bromley driving and Phoebe in the back seat. Why is it important for us to know that his dog went for the ride as well? When someone offers up additional information in a story like this, you've got to ask, what exactly is going on here? Are they just trying to add details to make it sound more credible? Or is there something significant about his dog being in the vehicle? Okay, so I skipped a paragraph there which I probably should have included, which is, he quickly ran to the local IGA to grab energy drinks and return to the house around 8 a.m. Why is this important information for him to share? Again, he's giving extra details here that he's offering up himself. They've not been asked for. What's the significance here? I suspect he's been questioned. He's been probably told by police, we have CCTV footage of you at the IGA at 8 a.m. It could also be his way of basically adding details to the timeline to explain something else that perhaps can't be adequately explained. Hopefully Queensland Police are onto that and they know what the situation is there. So we have, going on, minutes later, about 8:30 a.m, before they'd left Gin for Bundaberg, Phoebe called her boyfriend to let him know she was on the way. Now that directly contradicts the information that was put out by law enforcement early on in this case, where they said that the phone call had been made at the time that she was due to check in at the airport. And they also believe that the phone call was made in the vicinity of the airport. They have cell tower information now showing the location of Phoebe's phone, and it is my understanding from what's been released to the public that that phone was in Bundaberg at 8:30am, not at Gin. So there's huge discrepancy here. Now, in one of my previous videos, I did mention that Daily Mail had done an interview with Phoebe's boyfriend. So here it says, Daily Mail Australia previously reported the boyfriend claimed he heard shouting during the call. The boyfriend later told a friend they were both yelling at her and I couldn't really hear her, which contradicts the official information that was put out that said that he didn't hear anything on the call and the call was cut off. So it's interesting, there's a discrepancy here. It's possible that that information may not have been meant for public ears, because of course police are going to hang on to information that is important that they don't want out in the public. So it is possible that the only information that was meant to come out in the public was that her phone cut off when she rang the boyfriend. Okay. Wood doesn't dispute the claim and said that Phoebe was still complaining she didn't have time to do her makeup and was worried she was going to miss the flight. So clearly the main thing that he's trying to push here is that they were so late for the flight and Phoebe was so worried about her makeup. Well, okay, but she had a stopover in Brisbane. I'm guessing that a flight from Bundaberg to Brisbane is not going to connect up like directly with a flight from Brisbane to Western Australia. So who knows how long the stopover time was in Brisbane. She would have had time to do her makeup then. I'm sure she would have understood that. We just wanted to get her checked in and thought if we can just get there, she will calm down. Now he's speaking like she's a 12-year-old. They just wanted to get her checked in? Really? Wouldn't it be she just wanted to get herself checked in? I'm not liking this story. This is all about Tanika and Wood being the heroes and Phoebe being this petulant child who didn't know how to behave and needed people to tell her what to do. Tanika grabbed her makeup bag next to her and passed it back and told her to take anything she needed. And why exactly, if it was just a quick drive to the airport to drop her off, did Tanika even have her makeup bag in the car? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Also, let's acknowledge that Phoebe would have had her own makeup in her luggage, and it would have been in a position where it was easy to access, particularly if she was wanting to put on makeup before the flight. For those of you who are my regular subscribers, does this not remind you of Stephen Stearns giving excessive amounts of information, creating this super long story? Well, you know, I was going to take her to have Macca's for breakfast, but she decided she didn't want Macca's, so we didn't go there. But then I doubled back because I thought she just might change her mind, but she just didn't want it. I mean, this is a extremely long, extremely detailed story with far too much information. Okay, moving on. Her plane was stopping in Brisbane and we told her that the airport had everything she needed as she can take her time and do the makeup in the toilets. But she wanted to look nice for the flight first and wouldn't let it go. So now the story has changed from her wanting to look nice for her boyfriend to her wanting to look nice for the flight beforehand. This is a small regional flight. And let's be realistic here. All the photos we've seen of Phoebe, yes, she clearly makes an effort with her appearance, but from all the photos we see, from looking at her family, from looking at her, she doesn't strike me as the sort of kid that's going to be so fixated on having her makeup perfect for a 1 hour regional flight. And let's be realistic. Her number one concern, if, as he claims, they were running late for the flight, would be to make it to the airport on time. She wouldn't give a rat's about makeup. She would just be focusing 100% on getting there in time for her flight. But at the same time, even if, as he claims, they left at around 8:30, that still has them arriving at the airport around 9:10 for a flight that didn't leave till 10 o'clock. The math doesn't math. This story is so full of holes, and it is so full of additional details that just really aren't necessary. You know, adding things in like, oh, she smashed the TV. Well, clearly somebody smashed the TV, and let's blame it on Phoebe because she's not here to stand up for herself. Okay, moving on. As they approached Airport Drive, less than a kilometre from the terminal, the argument continued. Wood said. Wood told Bromley to pull the car over, and they got out and walked a distance away to give Phoebe some space to collect herself. We wanted to give her 5 minutes, give her her own space to do what she needed to do, he said. We walked to the end. It was maybe 5 minutes, maybe it was 3, or maybe it was 8. But that's about how long we were gone. Wood said when he returned to the car, Phoebe and her bag were gone. Well, what a crock. Okay, first of all, so apparently they were less than a kilometre from the terminal. And she was freaking out about being late. So you're going to pull over the car and walk away and leave her alone at the car, freaking out because she's going to miss her flight? Sure you did that. Or if you did do that, then you were doing it to be an a-hole. But look at what he's saying here. They wanted to give her 5 minutes for her to have her own space and do what she needed to do. What she needed to do was to actually get to the terminal, doofus. But he's saying, you know, they walked to the end. They were gone at the most 8 minutes. Meaning that if they were gone for 8 minutes, then they obviously had their backs turned for 4 minutes. 4 minutes out, 4 minutes return. And he's claiming that she was gone. They got back and she was gone. No sign of her. This is Airport Drive. If you've ever been to an airport, you'll know that there's one thing that all airports have in common. Have you figured it out? Level ground. Airports aren't built on a hill because they need level ground for the runway. So, basically, to walk 4 minutes, turn around and be like, oh, she's gone, you would be able to see, presumably, and correct me if I'm wrong, all the way to the terminal because it is level. And now he claims they were under a kilometre from the terminal. Meaning, first of all, why would you stop then? Because, like, if you're under a kilometre from the terminal, it's going to take you, 30 seconds to get to the terminal? A minute, 2 minutes, not long. by car. So why not just get there, let her out, and let her deal with her own problems? It's a ridiculous notion. But to say that she was gone in 4 minutes. So the original version we were given is that it was around about approximately a kilometre from the airport. This is the information that was given when Phoebe first went missing, which is presumably the information that Wood gave to police when Phoebe first went missing, and was therefore relayed to the public in the hopes that someone might have seen her. Now, let's talk about how far a 17-year-old carrying a duffel bag that's almost as big as her could go in 4 minutes. Because I'm willing to bet that it's not very far. Let's say it is under a kilometre. Well, I used to walk home from school every day when I was in high school. That was pretty much exactly a kilometre, and it was about a 20-minute walk. That was with a school bag, which, if I could get away with it, would be slung over my back. This is the days before schools had backpacks, and it was just those really horrible school bags that just had the 2 handles. I went to a school where if you were ever caught walking with your school bag slung over your back, you would get into trouble, and that also meant walking home. So when you were walking home, you were careful not to be seen with it slung over your back, just in case a teacher drove along the road and spotted you, because you knew you would get into trouble the next day. So let's say, for argument purposes, even if they stopped a half a kilometre from the terminal, that's still a 7 to 10 minute walk without a heavy duffel bag. With a duffel bag that's apparently as big as her, you're probably talking 10-15 minutes at the least. So this story just doesn't hold water. It's just a complete, utter load of BS. And I mean, seriously, if they're going to turn around and say they stopped any closer than half a kilometre, just why would you? I'm just going to say, I'm willing to bet that when this guy was at school doing NAPLAN testing, that he failed the literacy tests when it came to narrative telling stories. Okay, moving on. He assumed she had walked the short remaining distance to the terminal. The couple then drove toward the airport to check, he said, but they didn't see her along the way. You wouldn't miss her carrying that thing if you drove past her and saw her. You'd notice, he said. Well, given that it's Bundaberg and not Melbourne CBD, you would notice anyone walking along Airport Drive with heavy luggage, because it would be an anomaly. Had this happened, she probably would have been the only person walking along there. And of course, clearly, by saying, you wouldn't miss her carrying that thing if you drove past her, he is trying to establish the idea that somebody else must have stopped and picked her up and abducted her on Airport Drive in Bundaberg. The likelihood of that occurring is pretty slim. And if that's what you are inferring, Mr. Wood, given that you didn't leave Airport Drive, perhaps you can provide details of any vehicles that drove past during that 4-minute period of time. Wood claims the pair then waited outside the small terminal for some time but did not go inside. I said to Tanika, if I go in it'll just escalate things again, but she said if she went in it would look like we were parenting her. Oh my gosh, seriously? This is just a load of BS. Now, I would like to know if the footage that they have of the vehicle actually does have Tanika in the vehicle, because we have these two different versions. One where he drove her to Phoebe to the airport in Tanika's vehicle, and this version from him where Tanika is present. Now, given that Tanika was an NDIS worker, I'm going to guess that she's probably not completely devoid of emotional intelligence, and that she probably would have known how to handle a 17-year-old and probably wouldn't have felt concerned over her looking like it was parenting her to go in and check on this 17-year-old, and would have known what to say, such as, I just wanted to check that you made it to the terminal, have a good flight, see you later. For that matter, all you really had to do was stick your head in the door. It's a small terminal, you'd be able to see pretty quickly if she was in there. So again, what a load of bunk. They then decided to check surrounding roads in case she had walked off in another direction. Now, I think I need to show you the map's view of Airport Drive, just to give you some picture of what we are talking about. So, they're on Airport Drive, supposedly less than a kilometre from the airport. As you can see, Airport Drive does not continue past the airport, it then becomes Commercial Road or Commercial something. And he seems to think that, well, maybe whilst walking along Airport Drive, she headed off in another direction. Because she's 2, not 7. Where else could she go, for starters? Aside from that side road that goes to what appears to be another part of the airport. Can we acknowledge it is super flat? Had she done that, you would have seen. So yeah, supposedly Phoebe can't walk in a straight line and make her way to an airport terminal that would have been quite visible from wherever they pulled over, supposedly on Airport Drive. So they then decided to check surrounding roads in case she had walked off in another direction. Because sure, you would do that if you were late for your flight and carrying a massive duffel bag. You would go, geez, I might go for a stroll. I might head off into downtown Bundaberg before I walk to the airport terminal. Really? We drove around and as far as we thought she could have made it, and then drove a bit further just in case. Oh my gosh. Wood claimed this would have been the moment when CCTV footage picked up his car heading towards the Goodnight Scrub National Park. But of course, that explains everything. He's just, completely given himself a full alibi here, hasn't he? Well, we did take her to the airport, but, we pulled over and she vanished. Completely just evaporated from the side of the road. And yes, you might have seen the car headed towards Goodnight Scrub National Park. But that's only because we were searching for her, just in case she'd gone somewhere else. Because for some reason it didn't occur to us that she would most likely be in the terminal. Even though we didn't check in the terminal, didn't take the time to go inside the terminal to check that she was there, but instead drove around Bundaberg just in case she got supersonic speed, super strength, and was running around the streets of Bundaberg with her duffel bag. I mean, let's get real here. Let's say hypothetically this did happen. They stopped on the road approaching the terminal. They walked in the opposite direction. They stopped the car, walked away in the opposite direction from the terminal. By the time they got back, there was no sign of her. Why would they not believe that she had gone into the terminal if supposedly they were less than a kilometre from the terminal? I mean, if they were too far for her to walk there on her own, then wouldn't you think, oh, well, maybe someone stopped and gave her a lift? After all, this is Bundaberg, you know, this is Australia. People heading along to the airport for probably the one flight that was going to leave see a young girl lugging luggage that's as big as her along the road, and they realise, well, she's going to miss her flight. We better stop and give her a lift. But no, they don't think of that as a possibility. They decide that she must be headed somewhere else into Bundaberg. She's lost all sense of direction, wandered off into the main area of Bundaberg. Like, how ridiculous does that sound? I mean, my thoughts would be, well, someone must have picked her up because she couldn't have made that distance to the airport on her own. So I would go and check in the terminal. I wouldn't just automatically go, well, I won't go into the terminal. I'll just go drive around the town instead, just in case she went the other way. I mean, seriously, who's going to buy that soggy bread? And then Wood insisted that he did not hurt Phoebe and assumed she had boarded the flight. Now, while there has been speculation, of course, that Wood was involved with Phoebe's disappearance, it hasn't been all that direct. So for him to say he insisted he didn't hurt Phoebe, to me suggests that possibly he did. And I mean, like I said, this story just doesn't hold water. It's so full of holes. Now, let's talk about another story that's coming out in support of Wood. So we heard the story about the deceased dogs on the property, and that police had removed several deceased dogs, and that the smell from the property was rather unbearable. So apparently, Woods told a friend that they didn't kill any dogs there. It was just that 5 puppies out of a litter of 13 contracted hookworm and passed before the treatment could work on them. Yes, dogs do die of hookworm. They usually struggle with anemia first, because basically the worms latch onto their stomach lining and drain their blood, meaning that those puppies would have had to have been very, very, very sick first to reach a point where they were treated and they still died. And were they that ill, then just giving them a wormer would have been pointless. They would have needed veterinary treatment. So even if this is the case, this to me says that they basically got hookworm from the mother whilst still suckling, meaning that the mother wasn't up to date with her worming treatments, and to have such a heavy worm burden that they died, well, that's an issue too. But let's be real, it seems like this guy has a talent for making up stories. He doesn't seem like someone who likes to admit to his mistakes. He sounds a bit like Stephen Stearns with a story for everything. Now, before I finish, I want to have a look at some photos of Bromley's car that have come out in the last couple of days. Some of them are screenshots from the video that I played in yesterday's video, but there's also a photo because there's something I see here that is quite significant. Okay, this is just an aside, just showing that they pulled the badge off the back of the car to try and hide the car from people so they wouldn't realise it was a Hyundai. Seems like police must have had words with him because there is no longer any tape or paint on the number plate. You can see smudges where the New South Wales hasn't quite been rubbed off fully though. Now this is a photo that was taken by someone from the Daily Mail, and it was a photo of a local basically harassing Wood who was sleeping in Bromley's car. That I'm not interested in. What I am interested in is a few things. First of all, look around the wheel arches and around the skirting on the bottom of the car. That car's been on a dirt road. So I do hope that when that car was being checked out by forensics, that they did in fact get some soil samples from those wheel arches, because I think that could be quite telling. I also want to point out the dent just under the tail light on the rear panel. Could be totally unrelated, but I just thought it was worth pointing it out. So the first thing I spotted when I was watching that video yesterday was all the grass caught up underneath this car, and the fact that the tyres are illegal because that passenger front tyre is bald on the outside, but that's irrelevant other than the fact that that car shouldn't be on the road. But let's get back to talking about the grass. The car's been off-road. It's not just been along a dirt road, it's been off-road. It's been somewhere where there is long, dry grass. Well, I'd like to know when that occurred. Now, obviously, grass samples aren't going to help much unless, well, dried grass samples, unless they can actually identify the particular type of grass. But, I mean, if it's a native grass that's, you know, in the Bundaberg area, in the Gingin area, then it could be all over the place. But I do hope that this has been noted by detectives, and hope this is part of the questioning from detectives. I'm trying to decide if the front of that car looks overly clean, but it's hard to tell in that photo. Obviously it was a late afternoon photo. The lighting wasn't great, so who knows. Okay, so this has been a slightly longer video than what I have been doing with regards to Phoebe's case, but I thought it was definitely worth looking at this ridiculous story that the flatmate has shared with Daily News and pointing out why it is a complete crock of you know what. Hopefully Wood's being released and not charged is either a strategic move by investigators or just a minor glitch until they have more evidence. And let's hope that sometime soon Phoebe is found. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button and please leave a comment below. Thank you, and I will catch you in the next one.